shoot. Fires from the top of the key and takes it home. The Liberty take a 2-point lead.
Welcome to Liberty FM, the podcast dedicated to all things New York Liberty. I'm Felicia, and I'm joined by my co-host and husband, Francois. This is episode 23, recapping Game 1 of the WNBA Finals between the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces. We did not get the result we wanted, but we all knew this was going to be a tough game, a tough battle indeed. Francois, let's get into this one.
Yeah, let's get into this one, and it felt like I got punched in the mouth because that's how I felt at the end of the game. Very disappointing results. We knew it was going to be a tough matchup against the Aces, but when we look at the first half, I certainly didn't expect the outcome in the second half that we had. And when you have a performance by JJ and Johannès in the first half, you feel like you're in a good place to not necessarily create the upset, but, get the first punch and get that game one in the bank. But it didn't happen the way we expected, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the first half, the Liberty came out aggressive. I think, both teams, we knew this was going to be a battle, and I really thought this was going to be closer than how it ended. And, that's why they're the number 1 and number 2 team in the league. This was going to be that juggernaut battle that was going to swing back and forth. And you were definitely going to see runs going back and forth between the teams. And you saw that the first half for sure. It was the Liberty at some point, Aces at another point, and it just kind of went back and forth. And that's what you want to see. It was great basketball. There were different miscues on both sides, but great basketball overall. And yeah, the X factor for the Liberty was Johannès. And so, she is spectacular to watch. Just to see her, especially do these one-legged threes, and you're just thinking, how are these shots going in? But it's normal for her. This is like her normal shot. And then, again, JJ in the paint, she was so aggressive going up. That was one thing I was saying before. Like, sometimes I was feeling like, is Asia in her head a little bit? But no, she was not. She was more aggressive in this game. She was taking it. She was fighting for those balls down low, even when it got scrappy. I was just proud to see her just be so aggressive on the ball and really get those shots in. And so the first half just looked like, all right, this is going to be a tight one. This is really going to be a tight game. Vandersloot and Sabrina didn't shoot well in the first half, but I thought, all right, we still got the second half, because usually the Liberty, everybody makes adjustments, but usually the Liberty come out in the second half and they do tend to ramp up in the second half, I felt. But in this game, not so much.
Yeah, I wanted to see a great basketball game. We had quite a few blowouts on, in the different matchups that we had this season between the two teams, either for the Aces side or the Liberty. And so I was really pleased, especially the first quarter. It was going back and forth between the two teams. Stewie had a good field goal percentage in the first half. So you felt confident, that she got, things going. But then on the other end, Asia was also scoring in every position. So we were up for a great game, definitely. Now, also, it's great to see that some of the things that we mentioned in the previous podcast in terms the key factors of the game came to fruition. Like you mentioned, Johannès, we knew that she was going to be an X factor in this game. She has played very well against the Aces, whether this season or last season. And we know that for Becky Hammond to give a compliment on a player that is not on her team, that probably means a lot. So I was really happy that finally Sandy Brandello decided to give some playing time for Marine. Like Lexi Brown said on Twitter, Marine was out for 2 weeks, so that this is her time.
It's her time now. Can I just give a side note?
Yeah.
For Becky Hammond, she's the only player that Becky Hammond truly talks about with such high regard.
Yeah.
Is Johannès. And she watches her, and I'm just like, I was telling you, I was like, y'all be careful. I hope the Liberty have her for some time, because I would not be surprised if they try to land Marine at some point. Not that I think she would ever go there, But at the same time, I'm just like, Becky speaks really highly of her out of anybody on the Liberty team. And yeah, she does come in like a sniper, though. She comes in for a couple minutes. It's like she has these crazy shots and then she leaves and they're up by like 8-10 points. And you just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, she deserves all the praise, but I'll keep an eye on Becky Hammond and the Aces over there with Mourinho.
No, it's, I don't think you have to worry. But, yeah, definitely, like, it's really hard to defend a player like her because she's so quick and, you know, off the screen, you know, dribbling. She could go left, right. She could cross you. She could shoot with one leg. So she was incredible. What we expected and hoping, and it really happened. So it was great. And then I was glad to see that the Liberty, you know, because you had Kia Stokes defending on JJ, because Asia Wilson was defending on Breanna Stewart. So as great as Kia Stokes is as a defender, she cannot match the physicality of Jonquel Jones. And so every time, you know, they managed to get the ball in the paint for JJ, she was dominant every single time. She was aggressive. She wasn't hesitating. She was attacking the basket. And she pretty much had almost like a double-double by the end of the first quarter. So, you know, we know that the record of the Liberty, they only had, you know, one loss when Jonquel Jones has a double-double. I think they're like 14-1 or 15-1 or something like that. So, you know, when you see her almost having a double-double by the end of the first quarter, you feel good. And then the X Factor Marine, those are things that come into your favor. But there were things, though, in the first half where you felt like the Liberty could potentially get in trouble. You know, the beauty of having such a long week is great that, you know, anybody can recuperate and feel ready for the finals. But the other thing is that when you have great coaches like Becky Hammond and Sandy Brandello, you know, it gives you time to figure things out, looking at the matchup, maybe watching old tapes of, you know, the different matchups they had in the season and figure out a plan. And you saw from the get-go, the Aces were on fire from the three-point line. Everybody was like, you know, shooting from threes. Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray. But the difference was that, you know, Benaja continued to have a good defense on Chelsea Gray, but Jackie Young and Kelsey Plum were more aggressive in that game than we've seen prior, especially in some of the games they lost against the Liberty. And you were worried. We had mentioned that you were worried, especially with Sabrina, how it could be, you know, a weakness for the Liberty. Now, I felt like Sabrina was okay in the first half, but overall, they were, you know, her and Vandersloot were not able to sustain for a full 40 minutes.
Yeah, this game really came down to a battle of the guards, and the Aces won that battle. And so I think, you know, my hope was that if you could limit one of them, Jackie Young, I felt was harder and to limit, but if you could limit one of the guards, you would have a better shot. And unfortunately, they were the highest scorers for the Aces. They both scored 26 in this game. And so when two of your guards are giving you 52 points, that is going to be tough to overcome. And I think it was just tough. Benaja was doing all she could do with Chelsea Gray. It's not that Chelsea Gray wouldn't score. She's going to get some shots up. Shots are going to go down. She's a tremendous player. But she did disrupt her enough. The problem is Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, they were getting by Vandersloot and Sabrina, unfortunately, in this game. And it's true. I don't think Sabrina had a bad game defensively. I don't think it was that terrible in the first half. I thought she did pretty well. You know, I've seen how they try to exploit her earlier in the season, and I think she did much better in this game. And that's really all you can ask for. Obviously, they have to step it up. You got to step up that defense. You can't let them get open shots. You just can't. Even when they were trying to play zone, they weren't getting back quick enough because one of the Aces, you know, one of their strengths is to keep that ball moving. You hear Becky Hammond say all the time, you got to keep that ball popping. And if you don't, that's when the defense can set up. But if you keep that ball popping, you can get the defense on the back foot and likely get a shot down, and it worked in the Aces' favor today. And so, unfortunately, I think I would say more Sloot than Sabrina. There were just some plays where Jackie Young or Kelsey Plum could get by her a bit easier, or you had the switch where unfortunately it was Jonquel on one of them, and that's tough. It's like, Jonquel, you need Jonquel in the paint. You don't need Jonquel up high trying to defend on a guard, and because they're so quick to the basket. So I think those are things that they'll go back, look at film, learn from it, learn where they need to tighten up their defense, because again, these two teams have gone at it all year, and I do feel like it's pretty even when you look at the stats. It's not like the Aces are blowing the Liberty out the water in stats. When you look at it, they're neck and neck in a lot of things. It's just that they had the advantage and shots weren't going down for the Liberty on some points, where shots were going down for the Aces almost most of the time. And so, in this game, it was always going to be a tough one. But I think, the Liberty can take this. It is possible. Obviously, defense wins games. And so they got to lock in on defense better. And they can play better, because this is not the best we've seen the Liberty. This was definitely an off game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we were also talking about the battle of the coaches, and Becky Hammon definitely outsmarted or outshined Sandy Brandello, because even you look at the first half, when at some point the Liberty had an 8-point advantage, and then Becky took a timeout, and for a little while the Liberty didn't score, and next thing you know, the Aces came back, and they were only trailing by 3. If you're the Aces, you gotta feel good, really good about that. Yeah. Considering that Marine scored like maybe 12 or 14 points in the first half, and Jonquel Jones had pretty much a double-double. You feel good about it. And then the second half, that's when things went downhill. A complete shift in terms of the intensity, the defense. Jonquel Jones barely got the ball on the inside. They were really crowding her, like she said, post-game. And then, we talked a lot about Betnijah Laney throughout those playoffs. But, her lack of involvement, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's her fault, but it's either the Liberty that, didn't play more for her, or the Aces that also had a plan and decided to make her as little involved as possible on offense, because they know that if she gets going, that can turn the things around.
Well, I also think it's tough because Chelsea Gray and Betnijah were pretty much defending on each other throughout the game. So it's not easy. As Chelsea Gray got some shots off, Betnijah made her life difficult. And on the other end, Chelsea Gray made Betnijah's life difficult, and so it's not going to be easy. And so there has to be a way, to get Betnijah open up, because really they do focus more on Stewie and on Sabrina. By the second half, even when they brought Marine back in, they suffocated her. They double teamed her. She couldn't get shots off. She had to pass. And so they made the adjustment and had a better game plan in that regard. But then when you saw Betnijah cutting to the basket, that's where she started to come into play. But at that point,
it was a little too late.
It was a little too late, because at this point, basically for the third and fourth quarter, the Aces won each quarter by 10 points. And, each quarter was won by 10 points. And so, they're going on these deep runs, and the Liberty can't get shots off, and that just throws you into the abyss. Basically, you're just trying to claw your way back out, but it's tough. And once you give them that momentum swing, the Aces are such a tough team, they're not going to let that go. It's just not, as you have seen with the Aces all season, once they get going, they are hard, really hard to stop. And so it's just not easy. And so for Betnijah, I always thought in the finals, it should come down to Betnijah and JJ. Yeah. Marine was a great X factor, but you need everyone to contribute. When you look at the box score and you see for the starting five, the Aces all in double digits, or I'm sorry, 4 out of the 5 in double digits, but high double digits, you know.
Yeah,
for the Liberty, Sloot got 10 points, but Nigel got 11 points. Like, Stewie led the team with 21 points, I think.
Yeah.
So it's just tough when your starters aren't scoring the way you're used to seeing them score.
Yeah, I mean, the Aces, there's a very interesting stats that says that they are the best during the regular season. The Aces were the best team in the league when it comes to third quarters, and that they were outscoring their opponents by more than 19 points per 100 possessions. And that third quarter was a confirmation once again about how dominant they are. And so, you know, they made the Dallas Wings look like rookies in the semifinals, and then, you know, completely outshined the Chicago Sky. And so you kind of wonder, was those teams just not good enough? Maybe a little bit, but it's also because the Aces are so good. And can you imagine if they had, you know, a deeper bench? How unbeatable they would be, and you know, considering the fact that Candace Parker is still out right now, it is scary because their starting lineup is really, when they get going, unstoppable. And I think, you know, the difference between the two teams, you know, the games that the Liberty won, you had big games from Sabrina. She was pretty much non-existent on offense in this game, and the Liberty had managed to, you know, limits Kelsey Plum's contributions in those games, and she had a big game. I think she knew that she had not performed the way she's used to against the Liberty, and she was very aggressive. I think she really picked the defense apart, you know, because she's quick. You know, it's really hard to guard her. She limited her, you know, a 4 3-point shot. She had maybe 1 or 2 in the first quarter where, you know, she took quick shots where she could have maybe waited for a team. But she really, like, you know, took her time, cut to the basket, being aggressive, and the Liberty had no answer. But the MVP of the game was really Jackie Young. I mean, you know, the Aces go as far as Jackie Young goes. Obviously, AJ Wilson is the superstar of the team, but Jackie Young is the go-to player that when she gets going, we know she's a force defensively, but she improved her game over the last 2 years in an incredible way. She was the best field goal percentage from the 3-point line this season, and she has a range of plays. She could take, you know, 3-pointers, and if you give her too much space, she makes you pay. She can attack the basket, get an and-one. She can have those mid-range. And then you have Chelsea Gray that is going to facilitate. If you cut to the basket, then, you know, she has a good chance to find you. And I think she scored like 12 points in the third quarter, 26 points overall. I mean, she was the unstoppable player that the Liberty had no answer for, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know, Jackie Young coming into this league, you know, being that number 1 overall pick for the Aces, you saw early on in her career that it was a struggle. But she made the necessary adjustments, and I think even with, you know, the encouragement of her teammates, Becky Hammond, and just people having her back, she was able to really up her game over the last couple years and just be that anchor on that team. That even if Asia and Chelsea aren't having these spectacular numbers, that she's going to give it to you. And I think when I look at this game and I think about the guards on both sides of the floor, this is where, you know, for the Liberty, this is the area where they have to get better in. This is the area. Now, Sloot, she's a veteran, you know, so it comes down to Sabrina. You know, I know that we've seen Sabrina shoot some mid-ranges. I've been saying it, like, she can't just be a 3-point shooter. She has to get some mid-range shots. Because I think for Sabrina, it's still early in the league for her. But I do think, kind of like Jackie Young, this is where Sabrina can up her game. And become that overall player who is not just a 3-point threat, can drive to the basket, can stop, pop, just do it all, kind of like Jackie Young. And I think this is where she will learn that as the seasons go on. But right now, you see that the guards of the Aces, they're just a notch above the Liberty, And again, like I said, if you can stop or disrupt even one, Kelsey Plum or Jackie Young, you have a shot. There is a shot, because I do feel like these two teams are neck and neck. And I think the Aces are just a notch above the Liberty. But I think that notch is because, one, they've won a championship together. They've been together for some time. So they've learned each other. This is the Liberty's first year. And yes, in the second half of the season, they got better. Things started to gel way better. They had the best record in the second half of the regular season. But again, you're going up against a team that they have won it together. They know what it takes to win together. They have the communication. They know each other well. Like, you could see that on the court. They just know how to play together well. Whereas with the Liberty, there are times where there is communication breakdown. And you can't have that against the Aces. Unfortunately, the minute you have that, they take advantage.
Yeah, I mean, at this level, especially in the finals, like, you're going to pay for it. I mean, they had the same number of turnovers, 11 on both sides, but the Aces scored 16 points out of those turnovers.
Liberty had 6.
The Liberty only had 6. That's 10 points right here. You see, for example, a play with Sabrina after the Aces score a basket during the inbound pass. It's just her and Jonquel Jones. She obviously passes the ball to Jonquel Jones, who just turned to looking somewhere else right when Sabrina is passing her the ball. When there's nobody else, like, why are you turning, the look away from the ball? So turnover, Kelsey Plum gets the ball and then, attacks the basket, gets the foul, and then there was, a couple of times where, Vandersloot just gave the ball away. And at this level, that's crucial plays that, at the end of the game, if the game was a little tighter, could potentially be crucial for your team. And, against a team like the Aces, making mistakes like that, you're going to pay for it. But, the one thing that I was really concerned, and that's definitely something to look for in the next game, was Courtney Vandersloot. We love Sloot. Obviously there are times when, when she's not playing, or she had a couple of games where she was rested, or, she had foul troubles. You could see the difference in terms of the way the Liberty run their plays. There's some spark missing, but as much as the Liberty let Kiosto pretty much on her own, because they know she's not gonna shoot, so that's pretty much 4 against 5 on offense for the Aces. On the other end, the Aces also came with the idea that they're just gonna let Sloot take her responsibilities and take the shots.
Yeah.
And I felt like, Sloot was very hesitant, pretty much most of the game. And when you're hesitant, you're not going to make those shots. Or, I feel like she's better when she's, catching the ball, catch and shoot. But if she takes, a little side dribbles or, dribble to go forwards, she would miss, quite a few times. And, she got better towards the end. But once again, it was, the game was pretty much over. And I also felt like on defense, she was, Sloot is very quick, but I felt like it was the first time in a while that I see her being really tired on defense and really struggling to keep up with the pace of, Kelsey Plum. So that's definitely... And Jackie Young. So I feel like that's definitely something that they're going to have to think about. I mean, at some point, Sandy Brandello replaced her by Marine. Marine was cooking. And third quarter, it was mostly Sabrina and Vandersloot. And at that moment, I was like maybe you need I know you've been relying on your starting lineup for a long time, but at this very moment, Marine is better. Yeah. So you need to play her and Sabrina, even though you lose, that general side with Sloot. You need to see what is working right now. And I felt like Sandy waited too long to bring Marine back, and Sloot was just a liability in that game. I mean, no disrespect, but
that's always my thing with Sandy. I think sometimes, especially with Marine will go off in a game. You could pick any game, first half, and then you don't see her for in the second half. you don't see her till the end or near the end of the third quarter. And I'm like, you need to keep playing her. She has the hot hand. I'm not saying that you sit Sloot for the second half of the whole game, but like you need to bring Marine in at like, I don't know, switch her out like somewhere in the 6th minute, like not waiting till like the last 2-3 minutes of the game.
When I was playing playground basketball, if you see a player who's hot or you hot, yourself, like, you're going to keep asking the ball. Or if your teammate is hot, you're just going to keep passing them the ball. If you see Marine cooking play after play, I'm sorry, I'm not putting this woman back on the bench. She's going to stay until you figure out how to stop her.
I mean, they did give credit to the Aces. They did, pretty much suffocate her. But by the time she came in...
But she had stayed on the bench for a while in the third quarter.
She stayed on the bench for a while. And I do think when players have the hot hand, you got to keep playing them. Because to me, a lot of times when Marine has had the hot hand, they go to the half and then you don't see her. And sometimes you may not even see her in the next quarter. And so it's like, how do you expect her to stay hot if you're not going to play her now for like just a couple minutes here or there, and you need to keep playing her. And so it's tough because Sloot is your starter. Sloot is the general. She's your point guard for that team. So it's hard because also the thing for if you take Sloot out, then that puts the ball in Sabrina's hands. And Sabrina at point, they tend to trap her, and she's an easier trap than Sloot. And so you kind of have to be careful of that too. With Sabrina, I'm not saying she didn't get trapped that much in this game, but if you start to go to that more, they'll adjust and they will begin to trap her. And so, it's a hard choice because you want to trust your starters. The last thing a coach needs to do is to basically bench one of your starters because one of the bench players, which it's crazy for me to say Marine is one of the bench players because really in any other team she would be a starter. That she would be the one, coming off the bench, and you don't want Sloot to sit for a long time either. She needs to get rest, but it's hard. It's a tough decision, but I do think you could have brought Marine in a little bit earlier and let her play because I think Sloot was definitely getting killed by the other guard.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, when Marine came back, when you expect like Marine to be the savior, to save yourself from losing this game, then you already lost pretty much. Because I think kudos to the Aces defense in the second half. They definitely made the adjustment. But the Liberty went back to things that usually make them lose games. I mean, they didn't lose a lot of games this season, but I remember that every time they lost a game, that meant that they were very stagnant on offense.
Yeah.
Not moving the ball, not, picking up the favorable matchups. And, the second half, it was really bad basketball. Like, they were just keeping the ball for too long, just having like one screen and that's it. It was just not good enough. And, even though Stewie was scoring points in the second half and ended up with 21 points, I felt like it wasn't really like a meaningful game for Stewie, despite the fact she scored 21 points, because I felt like the rest of the team was very static. And, I don't think Jonquel scored that many points in the second half either. So that's going to be something that they're going to have to be mindful in game 2. I mean, we know that so far the Liberty, I don't think they lost 2 games in a row this season. So we know they're going to make the adjustments, but it's obviously against the defending champ. And so that's not going to be easy. We know that the Aces at home are a really, really tough team to beat. But I'm trusting Sandy. Sandy, said it with confidence in the post-game conference that they will make the adjustments, that they will, turn things around and play better. And we really hope so because, being down 2-0, as much as I know that the New York crowd is going to bring ruckus in game 3 to try to, help the Liberty to win the game. You don't want to be down 2-0 coming back to New York because the Aces have, many chances to win that title. So, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the other factor that you have to keep in mind is that even though the Aces rely pretty much solely on their starting lineup, with the exception of Alicia Clark, the fact that all the games are so spread out, that is an advantage for the Aces, because you can play your starting lineup like many minutes without having to worry about fatigue, because the next game is Wednesday. That's, that gives you like 2 days of rest until the next game. And then after that, the next game is on Sunday. So that still gives you time. I think the only time where there's like a 40 hours difference would be between game 4 and game 5 if those games happen. So you're not gonna be able to count on fatigue from the Aces, because physically they look well prepared and they look ready to play a lot of minutes with the starting lineup.
I mean, they've been doing that all season, so fatigue is just it's not a factor. It can't be a factor for them. They've been doing this all season long, and I think the Liberty have to match that same energy. Yeah, and you have to be willing to match that same energy. I think, what Becky Hammond was saying about keeping that ball moving, keeping it popping, that same thing applies to the Liberty, because when they're stagnant, it's never good. If they're moving and they keep the ball movement going, they have a better shot. They have a better shot for, to get the right pass, get the right shot off, whether it's a 3-point or in the paint, whatever it is. I think if you keep the ball moving, you have a better opportunity to score than when you're stagnant. You allow the defense to set up, and the defense of the Aces is top tier. So, it doesn't help you if you just kind of make it easy for the defense to set up and, make it difficult for yourself.
Yeah. So what do you expect to see for game 2, or what you're hoping to see in comparisons to game 1? Obviously, we want the Liberty to win, but what do you think that they need to do for the next game?
This game goes as Benijah and JJ goes. What we saw versus Connecticut, obviously Sabrina is also an important factor. Yeah. Those 3 are the important factors. But yeah, when JJ can get going throughout the whole game, not just one half or the other half, like throughout the entire game, she has to be locked in, and you have to be feeding her the ball. Like, if you're not going to give it to her that much in the second half, and your guards aren't scoring that much, you can't expect to win this game just on Stewie's back. So it's really going to come down to them. I think Sabrina is hungry. She's not going to let this game bring her down. I think she'll come out shooting on all cylinders next game. She'll adjust. They'll look at film and they'll adjust, but you need Benijah as well. Not just defensively, but offensively. Marine adds a great spark, but you need your starters to be the starters that they have been throughout this season, and you need all of them to score and make. Even if Sloot doesn't score as much, you need the other 4 to score. In particular, JJ, Benijah, and Sabrina.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, the game would be on Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And so if you're a New York Liberty fan, if you're a season ticket holder, you have the invitation by the New York Liberty to watch the game at Slate NYC. And then for the people who are not season ticket holders, you can get a ticket for $25. So go and support the Liberty for this game too. We will not, unfortunately for us, will not be available to be at that watching party. But I'm sure that the Liberty fans are gonna show up and bring the energy. We were at the Barclays today for a watching party organized by the New York Liberty at the Barclays, and I mean, for the most part, except obviously towards the second half, things were getting like a little dicey. The atmosphere was great. fans show up, and it was just a great atmosphere. Considering the game was not at the Barclays, but on the big screen,
it was a great time.
It was great organization and a great initiative by the Liberty, and just to see the number of faithful fans that are rooting for the Liberty and the fan base growing throughout the years. I mean, it's amazing, and I know New York has been waiting for that title for so many years. I mean, the New York Liberty have never won a WNBA title, and the last basketball title for the city of New York was in 1973 with the New York Knicks. So we've been waiting for 50 years. Can you imagine? Sure. 50 years.
Any basketball title.
So New York, show up to the watching party on Wednesday. If you cannot, well, you can watch the game on ESPN. We'll try to, do a podcast for that game probably the following day on Thursday. So be on the lookout for that. But thank you so much for listening to our podcast and all the words of encouragement that we get. It means a lot. It keeps us going. So thank you so much.
Yep.
And as we always say, Felicia,
let's go Liberty!